Everyone hear me? Is this mic on? Good. I hate standing behind things, so I'm gonna get a little energy here. Gerald, thank you for the great introduction. Fabulous. Not deserved, but I'll take it. 12 years ago, it's actually almost 13 years ago, my wife and I are walking down Summer Street in Boston because a friend of ours from Harvard Business School said, "Hey, do me a favor, go meet this guy Gerald Tertavian. He's starting this thing called Europe." And I'm like, "Europe? What? What was it called?" I had no idea, right? So we're walking down Summer Street in Boston, and I see two kids come running by me, full steam ahead. And I look behind them, I'm like, wonder who's chasing them. And Navid and I walk into the Europe office, and there's the two young gentlemen huffing and puffing, and I'm saying, "Where were you guys running from?" And they said, "Well, we're running to class." I'm like, "What do you mean you're running to class?" "Well, if we show up late, we get fined." And I'm like, whoa, you're running to learn. And then Gerald walks in with that big Armenian smile, and I go, "I don't know, whatever you're selling, I'm buying." I mean, I have 4 children. None of them run to class. I only get one of the 4 to come today. And that was my introduction to Year Up. I mean, think about it. We have motivated young adults coming to learn. And Year Up does 3 things. Besides motivation, it has accountability and mentorship. 3 simple things. And guess what? Those simple things work. And it's all started by Gerald. And what I love most about Gerald is not only his tenacity, but he hires great people. I think he walks into a meeting, he walks into a room, and he says, "Is that person better and smarter than me? And if they are, I want them to work at Year Up." And he's built an organization that has a lot of smart, motivated, unbelievable people because of him. And, I've always said to Gerald, you could have taken a different path, right? He sold his internet company, made a couple bucks, and Gerald could run a Fortune 500 company today. He could. Easy. But he decided to sacrifice that to help people and to help young adults. And his wife, Kate's here today. And when I think about the sacrifices Gerald makes, I actually think, all right, he sacrificed a little bit. But Kate sacrificed even more with her kids because their house in Cambridge is like a house filled with Year Up students nonstop. Every time you go over there, there's someone there saying, "Hey, can you help me with this? You're feeding." I don't know how you feed everybody. So they've given their life to Year Up. So I'm just proud to be associated with Year Up. I'm proud to, frankly, be a part of it. And when you think about it, we did start here in Rhode Island, and Gerald was sitting in my office, and of course he picked my pocket pretty good and said, "How about committing some money for it?" And I was all in. We actually started in our offices at Providence Equity. Gerald said, "Listen, I've got this great young lady. She's just getting out of Harvard Business School. Her name is Sarah Stramiello. She's Italian. She grew up in Rhode Island." I'm like, "Italian? She's perfect for Rhode Island." And here comes this bright, freshly minted MBA and doesn't have a clue about anything. And that's perfect for Rhode Island because I didn't have a clue either. And Sarah, just stand up for a second. Come on. Sarah Enright now. And I remember we went over to see Mayor Cicilline, and you know what? We're like, we got to recruit some students, and then we got to find jobs. Don't forget now, this is during the recession. How are we going to find 22 jobs? Couldn't believe we actually did it. And really, it was all Sarah. And then from there, Megan Hughes took over, and Megan, you and Kathy have done an amazing job to fill this. 675 people in this room. Holy cow. So unbelievable. So Rhode Island, you are a big part of the success. So let's take a look nationally. How are we doing nationally? Because I got booted by Ted Fisher, who's now the local board chair, and he booted me up to be the national board chair. And we said, we're going to commit to making Year Up successful all over the country. Okay? So how are we doing? Let's get a slide up here. All right, so we start. By the way, these slides are getting out of date. So I think we're in 20 cities now. And at the end of the day, there's still a lot of gray space up on that slide. And when you think about the need for Year Up, there's actually a need for Year Up in every single city in America. And we went from begging people to jobs, now cities are begging for us to come to their city. So yes, this is a movement. Let's go to the next slide. I'm an investor for a living. And I look at this slide and I say, man, if this was a stock, I should have bought it a long time ago. All right, we're going to serve 3,000 people in 2016. We serve 3,800 this coming year. This thing's a rocket ship. And why is it a rocket ship? Because it's got great leadership and it's working. And why is it working? Because we're a good investment. Let's look at the next slide. Our corporate partners. Do you think corporate America is that nice that they want to take a Year Up student because they think we're doing us a nice favor? That's crap. We're a good investment. Why are we a good investment? If you hire a Year Up intern, there's a 3 times likelihood that that Year Up intern is going to stay a lot longer than some new MBA or some, Brown University grad who thinks they're too good at this entry-level job. So you invest in a Year Up intern, you invest in a Year Up young adult, you're actually making a great return on investment. And that's why people like State Street are taking hundreds of interns. That's why people like Lifespan are taking interns, because we're a good deal. We're a good investment. And are we growing too fast and sacrificing the quality? Let's look at the next slide. You start with a $7 wage rate, and now you're making over 18 bucks. This is a good deal for our students. This is a good deal for our internships. And trust me, is nothing better when a Year Up intern gets a good job, buys a house, starts a family. That's why Year Up is working. And that's why it's a movement. Because, if it wasn't a good idea, it wouldn't grow as fast as it's growing. So honestly, for all the corporate partners out here, thank you for supporting Year Up, but you should be thanking us because we're delivering you talent. And for all of our work, for all the money that we invest in every student, and I'm looking at our great governor, show me a better workforce development program in the country, because there isn't one. There is no better workforce development program in the country than Year Up, because we're turning everybody into a taxpayer. And I remember Gerald and I walking the halls of Congress saying, hey, Democrats, Republicans, how about if you just pay us if we deliver you a W-2? You spend billions of dollars on workforce development. Where does it go? How do you measure it? We measure every outcome. Every outcome. So don't give away money. Just give it to people who produce taxpayers, who produce jobs. And by the way, it was a great productive thing. And then the Democrats and the Republicans says, that's the greatest idea in the world. Problem is, we don't like each other. We can't get it done. Well, one day we are going to get it done. One day we are going to get it done. So, anyway, that's my Year Up commercial. And I just want to thank everyone who does support us. I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about some of my favorite Year Up moments. And, for Class 23, I got a chance to speak with you. And it was funny, I tell a lot of stories when I speak with the class, but I remember when one of our interns at Providence Equity came into my office, and you know what? I've had some success. I got a big office. Got all these old deal mementos, and I see the Year Up intern walking in, and he's kind of looking in the door, and I can tell he's thinking, what the hell am I going to talk to this guy about? And he kind of comes in sheepishly, and he sits down, and I said, so how's it going? He goes, oh, it's going okay. And he's kind of got his head down, and I said, well, how's work going? It's good, but, it's tough. I'm like, well, tell me about it. And he goes, well, I work, 8 to 5, but, to make ends meet, I have a second job. And I said, what do you mean you have a second job? What do you do? He goes, well, I work 30 hours a week at IHOP. I said, oh, how do you like working at IHOP? He goes, I don't know, it's a job. Get a paycheck. And I said to him, I go, we have something in common. And he kind of picks up his head and says, what do you mean we have something in common? We don't have anything in common. I said, my first job? He goes, what? Seriously, where do you think my first job was? And he looks at me, and I go, it was IHOP. And he said, get the heck out of here. He didn't say heck. He said, you worked at IHOP? I said, yeah. I washed dishes, I bussed tables, and I actually became a backup cook. I used to come home smelling so bad, because it smelled so bad inside IHOP. My parents made me take my clothes off outside just because I didn't want that stink coming in the house. And he looked at me, and all of a sudden, his shoulders kind of pushed back a little bit and said, hey, you worked at IHOP? And I go, yeah, I really did. And by the way, I had something you don't have. I was given a chance from the beginning. I was born white. I was born to two loving parents in a middle-class environment. I got to go to a great high school. I went to Brown University. I went to Harvard Business School. I was given a chance. Yeah, I may have worked at IHOP, but I also had a helping hand. And I said, do you realize that Year Up is your helping hand? Year Up is that helping hand. One of Gerald's favorite saying is, Year Up is not a hand out, it's a hand up. And I think, almost everyone in here that's not a Year Up student has been so lucky to be born white and privileged. And that this opportunity divide, we don't make it up. It's unbelievable how when one of our Year Up students who is dressed in a tie walks into my office building, and I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, and I walk in, and he holds me back and says, hey, Paul, go ahead. You walk, and then watch me walk. This is a Year Up student working inside our building here at Providence Equity, and he walks in, and the security guard stops him. Didn't stop me. I look like a bum. But they stopped him, and he's in a suit and tie. And I said, you've been working here for 3 months. He goes, happens all the time. Now, why does that happen? Because the opportunity divide is real, and it's not getting better. And without Year Up, we're having a hard time closing that opportunity divide. That's why Year Up is needed in every city in America. And I'm just lucky that I can do a really small part with it. And then I remember our intern, he said, so you went to Brown? Well, I could never go to Brown. I said, why is that? He goes, how am I going to go to Brown? I said, well, let me tell you another story. Our first intern at Providence Equity, Obasi Osborne, he worked for us for 6 months. We hired him. He worked for us for 6 years. One day he comes into my office and says, I want to go to college. I said, where do you want to go? He goes, well, I can probably afford CCRI. Maybe I can afford RIC. I said, well, what'd you get on your SATs? Told me his score. Like, holy cow. I remember when I got in my SAT, your score's a lot better. I always knew he was smart. I didn't know he was that smart. And we said, well, what about Brown University? He goes, you really think I have a chance? I said, well, if you don't apply, how do you know? Right? How do you know? Well, Obasi not only graduated from Brown University, he was the first class of Year Up. I think he was the first to ever graduate from an Ivy League. But now he's getting a PhD. And guess what? He didn't work at IHOP. He actually worked at the Hut Club washing dishes. So guess what, class 23? There is no limit to what you do if you just put your mind to it. Just put your mind to it. And for class 24, you know what? People put roadblocks up. People put roadblocks up all the time. Just jump over them. Because when someone tells you no, what do you got to lose to say you're wrong? And I think you remember class 23 and 24, I gave a little talk at your class, and I told them about when I graduated from Brown University, I sent out 1,000 resumes. And how many job offers did I get? You remember? 0. 0. And I told him the story how I was walking down Park Ave after getting rejected from an interview, and I had a rejection letter on me. And I'll never forget, 101 Park Ave. I was like, wow, I've got time to kill before I get to the train station. So I walk up to 101 Park Ave. I see the name of the woman. And I said, hey, can I go meet with this woman, Jane Smith, because I'm in New York. I came all the way down from Providence. I just want to meet with her. The receptionist calls, and she was afraid to, talk too loud. And Jane Smith wouldn't meet with me. Of course, I had 2 hours to kill before the train, so I said, hey, I'm not leaving until you tell her I'm sitting out here in the lobby. An hour and 45 minutes later, she walks out and has a big bunch of computer printouts and says, what's your name? I said, Paul Salem. She goes, oh yeah, we rejected you. I go, no kidding. I'm here because do you think out of all those names that you rejected, you might have made a mistake? She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, how can you tell from a piece of paper if I'm any good or not? I came all the way down from Providence, Rhode Island, just to get an interview. She says, well, I'm sorry. I can't give you an interview. I said, well, you know what? At least I tried. Hopped on the train. Didn't miss my train. No big deal. What did I have to lose, right? What did I have to lose? Next day, 7:30 in the morning at Brown, my roommate answers the phone. Hey, Sale, someone's on the phone. It was Jane Smith. She goes, someone canceled today. Can you come to New York today? You have a 1 o'clock interview. I bet you I made her not sleep that night. Right? Guess what? I go down on the train. Oh, don't worry, the story gets better. I go down on the train. What happens? I get the interview. Did I get the job? I didn't get the job. So why did I just waste your time telling you that story? Because I told that exact same story to someone who was interviewing a Prudential insurance company. And he said, hey, you say you have ambition on your resume. I don't usually see that. Tell me about something that you've done that's ambitious. And I told him that story. And he goes, you're hired. I got hired on the spot. So when someone tells you no, that's the first chance to say you're wrong. Right? And for class 23, I tell you that story for the simple reason of people are going to tell you no your whole life. And guess what? If they've already said no, what do you got to lose? Fight for it. Jump over that roadblock. Kick some ass. Okay? Because guess what? We need your talent. We need your talent in this state. If we can't hire year-up students in the state of Rhode Island, there won't be any people to work here. We need talented young people in this state, and someday there's going to be a year-up student up here who's running a financial services company, or is going to be the mayor of Providence, or is going to be the governor of Rhode Island. And someday there will be a year-up student who is the CEO of Year Up. And Gerald, you can be chairman. So thank you for listening to my little rantings. I do have the privilege of introducing someone I care deeply about. And in today's political environment, especially today's political environment, I can look at the governor of Rhode Island and I can say, she's smart, she's hardworking, she cares about us, and she doesn't care about herself. She cares about us more than she cares about herself. And I think we have a theme here because our first female governor is always going to be our best. Obviously, as the father of 4 daughters, I realize that women should rule the world. But I have a picture I want to show. There's our governor. And there's our governor with... There's our governor with... we hosted Year Up alum here. And I know the governorship is not an easy job, but that's one big smile. And pictures are worth 1,000 words. She's not here to get votes. She's here because she believes in Year Up. And she believes in workforce development. She believes in Year Up. And with that, I'd like to introduce our great governor, Gina Raimondo. Thank you.